So that leads into the question I was going to ask.
You can look at the numerous lawsuits that have been brought against HBCUs against white and non-black people. So this is something, or by white and non-black people because they were discriminated against them. So even by your own definition, black people have been racist against white people, and reverse racism is definitely a thing.
Can you say if you're using the white boy to put a table at an HBCU and was surprised and a sign that was like reverse discrimination and was surprised that people were pissed at him? That's not a good example. He was a dumbass.
And there are plenty of white people that go to HBCUs. There are plenty of white people that are in the black fraternities, etc. So I don't know what the fuck Fiona has made up in her head, but that's not true at all.
It's definitely.
Okay, misogyny wanted to go. Let misogyny go right quick. One second, let misogyny go right quick if Fiona.
I mean, I was gonna let her go, like she was cooking, but like, so like, kind of what she said. Listen, say you have a black majority municipality with a black mayor, black police chief, majority of the council is black. You have black homeowners association, black majority neighborhoods in said cities with black principals and superintendents in the school districts. Are you going to tell me that in this situation, blacks still can't be racist?
Oh, absolutely they can. And you know what a great example of that is? When everything was all black, Tulsa, right? And guess what happened? Those cities were burned down.
Did you say Kent?
Excuse me. I'm saying absolutely that can't happen because of the larger scale of the system that we exist within. It doesn't matter if you have a whole bunch of black people in the police department or a whole bunch of black people as a judge or this black person, whatever you name it. You can still, the system does not reinforce black racism. That would be me.
You're telling me that in a place where black power is heavily concentrated, it's still impossible to be racist by your standards?
And listen, he doesn't need to pick me.
George, you're trying to have a dialogue with you, George.
See, I'm having a conversation with one person. I'm having a conversation with one person. I'm having a conversation with one person. And what I'm saying to you is the system that is in place reinforces white racism. It would not reinforce my racism.
How wouldn't it reinforce
If I wanted to be racially biased towards you, I will be unsuccessful.
Not if I was in a power base where there was more of you than there was of me.
Yeah, but that power base doesn't exist, which is why I'm saying that it cannot happen.
I'm pretty sure there are places where there are pockets of black.
You're talking about a pocket, though. You're not talking about the entire structure, which is what you're not.
There will never be enough of you to permeate the structure.
Therefore,
you're literally creating a situation where you're the perpetual victim. There's no fucking way that 12% of the population is going to be ultimate power in the nation. That just doesn't work. You're literally making yourself the eternal victim. Nothing that happens to you is ever going to be good enough.
It's about
that's not true if you're Jewish.
It's about picking yourself.
You want to touch that?
It's not about picking.
Just like policy. Shut your mouth, concrete. Just one of my policy. I'm gonna talk to you however the fuck I want to. Don't make me show out because I will. Gorgeous.
You trying to put a tickle in my pickle?
You what?
Just being real.
I thought that was the intent.
Yes, I'm here.
So it sounds like a one-on-one with you and misogyny, and other people, of course, can always jump in. But I just want to hear both of your points because I think misogyny is making.
Yeah, he cooked him.
But okay, so one mic on board and then misogyny for the response, and whatever happens.
Thank you. It's not just about a pocket of people with a small amount of power. It's about an entire.
Say that 5 times fast.
So it's really ridiculous for him to even frame it in that way because he's obviously proving my point. My point is that Black people can never have the level of power that white people have had historically in this country because 1, population size, and 2, other factors, right? So at the end of the day, when you are controlling the system, if you are
somebody play the Naruto sad music behind
somebody just have the one mic policy.
Well, if you can't hear me speaking, then you have to exit the app and come back because there is a conversation at hand. But if you can't hear, you probably didn't hear that. Sorry. Right now we're hearing from Gorgeous, who will have a moment to make his submission, and then Misogyny will respond, and then we'll just kind of open the floor back up for feedback. Hi, Coco. Hi, Mrs.
Good morning. Good morning.
So thank you so much for allowing me to finish. And I just wanted to say that I was saying that because white people have created this system that we live in currently, and because white people are the majority in this country, it is virtually impossible for Black people to, even if I did have a racial bias and I did want to discriminate against white people, in which I don't, right? I wouldn't be successful at that attempt. And I just want to land by saying this. This isn't about the victimhood thing. This isn't about that at all. It's about being aware. It's about awareness. It's about knowing what type of state people live in. It's about not being naive when you go into certain places. Because some groups of people have to think about other things other than just living their lives. They have to be aware that some motherfuckers are racist. And as a result of their racism, bad things can happen to you. So it's not about victimhood. And I just hate this framing that just because you talk about racism, I think you're superior. I actually don't think any of you are superior than me. I see you as my equal. The issue is that some people do not see me as their equal, and I need to be aware of that. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless you.
I just want to say this. I think that guy was right. White people definitely want to be accepted by white people, and that's sad. But go ahead and massage it.
I don't know. All I heard was this is the reason why we're just always going to be victims, and there's no solution, no kind of like way to solve the problem. That like even if you were to gain some measure of political power, which you definitely do have the ability to in these United States, that no matter what, you're always never going to be racist. You're never going to be, you're always going to be the aggrieved party. You're never going to have the ability to be on par with with other racial majorities. That's all I heard from them. That's
because you didn't really, I don't think you understood, like there were words there that would have tied it all.
Oh, no, I heard everything. And
No, you heard everything.
Wait, let her give her summation, and maybe we had some disconnect. Go ahead, Simona. What do you think he didn't understand?
There are, like, when you're talking, like Gorgeous said, he's talking about being acknowledgement of it, and somehow he's saying, well, that's just showing that you, that we're never going to be equal to the white people, or da. Like he said, if you come into a room, there are people there that look at you as equal and not look at you as equal, and being aware that can occur. Gorgeous is talking about, but dude's like, if we acknowledge it, then we're just.
No, that's moving the goalpost because that wasn't the original conversation.
That is what I said.
That wasn't the original conversation. The original conversation is whether or not blacks can be racist. And he used this argument to say that blacks cannot be racist because no matter what,
you gotta let him get his point out now.
Even if they were to concentrate a certain level of political and economic power, they somehow still can be racist in the systems where they actually eked out a position for themselves. And I think that is, and I'm saying that is, for lack of a polite word, retarded.
But that doesn't. But also, do you actually do? So being in high power, I can be in high power in a company, right? Or I can be. I'll say it's a multi-level system. So any high power area, just becoming in a high level of power does not make you control the system because the system is so big. And so you're saying they're high power, so now they can be racist. He's saying that I can be in high power, but I don't control the entire system. You don't
need to control the entire system. White people don't control the entire system.
Yeah, a lot of them
do.
Wait, what's that?
Jewish.
A lot of them do.
No singular person controls the entire system.
Nobody
The
says
system
that.
is huge.
Nobody
It's
says
way
that.
bigger.
We're talking about a collective control or something.
Yeah, but there isn't a white
white
council
people.
that they can be like, okay, this is the
Don't
direction.
look at white
So
people.
we're all in favor, like clan, right? It's not.
It's not. So it's different nowadays. So it's not about the clan or a group of white folks. I think the white folks thing is probably what throws you
Well,
off.
we just don't have an emperor of white people, just like there's no emperor of black
Yes, you
people.
do. His name is Donald J. Trump.
The system is racist. The system is racist. You have to prove that versus individuals. So how is one to prove the system is racist?
Hey, don't point at historical events. Please don't point at historical events. Wait, I just want to say this. Please don't point at historical events that got amended, right? We're talking about now. Go ahead, Brian.
Gorgeous, would you say that in an African country where blacks are the majority and in power and whites are the minority, that blacks can be racist in that country against whites?
Against whites, I'm sure. Yes.
Okay, so what you mean then is that in America, blacks cannot be racist. You're not saying blacks in Africa or in that situation I described,
Absolutely.
blacks can't be racist. You just mean
I do think that black people, if given the opportunity, with the racial biases that exist within the black community, I do think it could happen if black people, if the roles were reversed. The issue is we can't speak in hypotheticals, but if the roles were reversed, if the system was in place, I do think you would see something similar.
But George,
let me answer this question real quick. I know, but hold on, let me answer this real quick.
Just one quick statement. I don't want to go down another question, another path. Let me just.
No, it's not.
Let him finish. Wait. Mental spot. Let him finish, brother.
So then, if the principle holds that it's based on power, then I don't see how you can say that in a situation where at a government level, federal, state, or local, or even within a company or with either any kind of power dynamic, that black people can't be racist, because there are plenty of dynamics where black people are in power and can discriminate and be biased and prejudiced and act in a racist way towards whites. So if the principle holds, then you can't just cut an arbitrary line and say, yeah, it holds in this way, but not in that way.
So just to real quick, just to expound upon the question Brian asked, and this is why I wanted to jump in there real quick. Gorgeous, would you say that it's really truly a level of racism, or would it be tied more to a level of prejudiceness?
You're asking about what I said or what Brian said?
What Brian is trying to allude to, because
that would in fact be prejudice.
That
would not be. It will be. It doesn't mean that black people are not capable of doing
racism.
Shit. Like it doesn't, and just because we don't call it racism doesn't make it any better that it's prejudice. It should be condemned with the same fervor that racism is condemned. The difference is that racism is about a group of people. It's about the community at large and the outcomes that are produced from the systems that we have placed. So that be That will be healthcare. That will be the criminal justice system. That will be education. That will be all these other areas in which we
racial lines.
So we see different outcomes on the basis of race, and it can't. And we know, because I actually believe that you lot or you people are not any differently than myself. Then I know it's absurd to see the outcomes where Black people are disproportionately impacted by things when we do similar things. So my point is, it's because of that belief that people are not different that I have to examine why we have seen these outcomes that we're seeing in our.
But that doesn't hold, because there are plenty of white people who are underprivileged, under-resourced, left behind. So it doesn't hold that only Black people are left behind in medical outcomes.
It's not about only, and that's where you guys get it messed up, because you think it's about victimhood. It's about, why is it that, yeah, we do have white people that are disadvantaged, and those people should be addressed, right? Those people should get help. But it's more about, why is it that on average, even though we know white people are disadvantaged, that they still do better than Black people on average, without doing the whole racist stuff of, well, Black people are disadvantaged
because of the historical Black in the past. I said, let's not appeal to those things that got fixed.
What are you talking about? These things are still persisting to this day.
No, it got fixed.
I don't know why you think
Black
it's being
people are
fixed.
now, the chains have been unleashed off of Black people, unlatched. They're free. They're not on the plantation anymore. They don't have all these problems holding them back.
I'm not so sure about that. I'll give you an example. There are two counties. I once helped run a state senate race in Dallas, northeast Dallas. There's Collin County, which is very diverse. Lots of
don't do that, bro.
Yeah, it's a good example. Collin County, and then there's Hunt County and Rains County. Now, Hunt and Rains County are far more rural. My candidate was an African American Muslim, Shia Muslim eye doctor. And I personally put up 30 of his 4x8 signs, meaning 8 feet long and 4 feet tall. And I personally put them up. Within 24 hours of putting up 30 of these signs in Hunt County, they all had the N-word painted on them, and they had this guy's face. Right? So you saw what this dude looked like. The prejudice and racism isn't gone. It's lessened. It's not what it was during the Jim Crow era. But to say that it doesn't have an effect, I think takes Gorgeous's point not as seriously as it should be taken. He's pointing out that in his life, he's been in situations where this has mattered. And again, there's not going to be everybody in the whole wide world running through Hunt County, Texas. The fact that that's still a way a section of America thinks about that is something that has to be
think that anyone was saying that racism doesn't exist?
I didn't say nobody said that. I was saying it was still active today was the example.
No.
The fact that this
who was saying that racism doesn't exist? Who was saying that it doesn't exist?
You said it, Nathan.
Nobody was saying that racism doesn't exist. What they're saying is that the institutions that perpetuate the racist systems you're talking about are non-existent.
I was talking.
But can we really say that they're non-existent, because redlining is still a thing, even though it's illegal, it's outlawed. We still see it actively see it happening. There are studies, there are things going on where people go into offices or retailers' offices with the same exact paperwork. You just had the case where they did the thing again, where they went to 32 different realtor offices with the same paperwork, the same job, the same information, the same credit score. Only thing different, instead of one saying Linda White, the other one said Quanisha Brown or some shit like that. You still see it happening.
Those are individuals.
You know why we see that? Because we see that the system, what we set in place to not allow this stuff, right, to happen, is working. That's why we don't see it. That's why.
That's not.
You're trying to say, Steve. You're trying to say that there's a few people. This isn't in the institution. There's only a few people you could point at, right, and say, hey, you did this to this group of people.
the system that's doing that. That's just bad practice.
No, it is.
And if that's the case, they should be sued. They should be sued.
But see, you're making it. This is how you guys
I'm making
oversimplify.
excuses. I'm telling you.
You're making excuses because you're not understanding that we're not talking about individuals.
Yes, it's because he's white.
Studying racism is more about the individuals who are wanting upward mobility, wanting to have a decent life, right? We're not talking about the individuals who do not want upward mobility, who are not being productive. What do I mean by that? Oftentimes when we're having these discussions, when we're talking about race, people always bring up the fact that, oh, well, there are black people who don't apply themselves. Great, there are, because that exists within human nature, no matter what your race is, right? There are white people who don't apply themselves as well, right? But the issue is we have an issue within the black community when we do apply ourselves, there tends to be a difference in outcomes on the basis of race, which is how we're able to see that there is something happening outside of just qualification. There is something in addition to being qualified that is blocking me from achieving this goal. And so that's why it's important to study it. It's not about victimhood. It's just about acknowledgement of the circumstances that you're in. It's not about that.
Let me just say this real quick.
Right?
No,
You're tired of being blocked. So other people are getting it as well now, right? So put your shoe on the other foot. Other people are getting blocked up too.
But here's the other part. Nathan, do you mind if I say this real quick though before we move past what Gorge is saying too? And I want to insert this in here because I don't think that y'all realize that you guys are talking about an individual level as if individual numbers don't accumulate up to a certain type of value. It doesn't matter if you say, oh, well, that's only those 32. Yeah, in this area, and another 32 here, and another 48 there, and another 23 here, and another 11 there. Even though, yes, I get it. What you're saying is it's not on the books, i.e. written in the law saying, hey, realtors, you can discriminate against black people and place them here. But it's still that the fact that it existed and people are still trying to live by that or incorporate that, which is the problem. And it's not this minute number that y'all are trying to make it be when you sit here and say, well, it was just those 32 people. Yeah, in this one area. So if we account for it everywhere, going everywhere, we see a much larger problem because, like I said, those individual numbers add up to a whole, a sum.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, that's when you want to consider people like statistics. What you're talking about is bad practice. Our system, what we're in, is not a racist system, so they don't allow that to happen. And when we figure out that there are people who practice those type of practice, we go after them to fix the problem. We're not talking about a perfect system. That doesn't exist. What you're upset about is black people just on the front end of all the damn illegal practices. And you know why that is? Because they're unfucking educated. That's why. They don't want to go after men to educate themselves and their kids to grow them up so they can be successful. They want to stay within their situation.
Nathan.
You know why? You know why? Because the white man has defeated you guys. Especially people like Gorgeous. People who got out of the system by doing the right thing. And then he's going to look at his friend. When he was in school, he wasn't out there trying to save his friend. It was like competition. Because he knew that he had a reason not to stay in the same situation he was in. And he looked at those other kids and he said to them, well, that's you. If you don't want to learn, that's you. It's the same story for these fuckers.
Well, that's not how I looked at it. I looked at it as,
but get out of here, man.
And when I'm in the spaces that I'm in, I realize that I'm the only one there. And it's not comfortable feeling like I'm an exceptional person. It's not comfortable. Because at the end of the day, I know there are people who are way more qualified than me, who are way more smarter than I am, and that they are more than qualified to be in the same position that I'm in. But that's a separate subject. I just think that when it comes to this topic, people are not understanding what we're actually saying is that we want what people who talk about race want ultimately is a space or a country where it doesn't matter. Like, I don't care if people are racist in their personal life. I don't give a fuck. Be as racist as you want to be. But the issue I have, or have your bias as much as you want to have, the issue I have is when it becomes racist. When your racial bias begins to impact other people's lives simply because you don't like their race. That's why racism is important to discuss. Because we have an issue with racism in this country. Unfortunately, we don't live in a space where people's racial biases doesn't negatively impact individuals. And once we achieve that goal, we don't give a fuck. At that point, do whatever the fuck you want to do in your personal life. That's it. It's not about controlling freedom of speech, that bullshit you guys said. It's not about any of that shit. It's just literally about leaving people the fuck alone and not allowing your negativity to impact someone's life to the.
But anyway,
blacks
can be racist.
I want to say this, Nathan, you got me. You pussy popper, you got me on this motherfucking stage today. But I won't let you put me again.
Wait, how did he get you? I'll get you out of it. How did he get you? Go ahead, tell me how he got you, and I'll get you out of it.
He was popping pussy on stage. That's what he was doing.
Oh, I can't get you out of that.
Yeah, he can't get me out of that. He was popping pussy on stage, and he caught me. Chaos got me right in the chat, though. Thank you, Chaos.
Wow, you just let her say you have a vagina like 12 times.
She said pussy, and that's a very specific type of vagina.
Oh, I thought she said pussy.
Girl, I said that too.
Hey, but to respond, to kind of respond to Gorgeous, what he was talking about racism, I you know what I'm saying? I don't deny that there's like racism. I don't deny that there has been some systematic waste from that. You know what I mean? Like all the shit we've been through wasn't gonna, as a nation, and how we got here and our relationship to this country, like it ain't just gonna wash away overnight and shit like that. But what people like me, get accused for being called a coon about it, it's like, I understand all that shit. My family from Mississippi, the whole nine, bro. Like, but life ain't never been fair nowhere on this earth. And all we trying to do, like people like me, is just trying to fucking survive, raise our kids, keep our kids safe. And we find that like harping on racism as a priority over some of the more in-your-face issues, like more in-your-face issues that do affect us as Black people, like our sons getting killed in the streets by our peers' sons. Like the fact that something as simple and petty as like car insurance is high as fuck because of somebody else's Black retarded ass son that they can't keep in line, stealing cars. It's stuff like that affects us financially. It's like the fact that crime happens in a neighborhood and we pacify it over and over again and then wonder why we can't sell houses that we own for a price that a white person in a better neighborhood or even a Black person in a better neighborhood could sell their house for, because the property's values went down because of crime. And all we saying is like, look, there could be some systematic issue why that trickled down to this, but to this day, we just keep on ignoring people's agency. Like a Black person in any kind of situation doesn't have the agency to tell their son, like straight, like you're not going to be stealing cars. And if you are, then like when you get shot in the streets in the line of your work, or you go to jail in the line of your work, that's just what it is. But what we end up doing is ignoring all of the sub issues that's going on that's affecting us directly and only focus on that child when that child gets shot by a cop, but not when he gets shot by his peer. Not when he dies in a car accident and took a family out because he was riding a Kia in the middle of the street at 100 miles an hour. Like, these are the things that affect us daily. Not no white folks far away with their lofty idea of white supremacy.
Wait, what?
Wait, whoa.
May I talk to this gentleman for 5 seconds?
Give me 1 second, okay. Nathan, how much is the yearly payment on your Amex white card, bro?
No. Come on, man. Let me talk to this gentleman. So, sir, I understand your concern, right? You sound like a conscientious man man who's serious about his community. You sound like a conscientious man that's serious about your community, and you want to see it do better. Now, the issue is there's going to be certain factors that are baked into the cake that are what we call human nature. And it's something that exists, and we can mitigate against it, but you're never going to eliminate it. And one of those things is youthful recklessness. And that, sir, is a ubiquitous quality amongst all youth across all of the world. Now, the ways that we mitigate against that is that we say, hey, youthful person, we're going to keep an eye on you. We're going to give you tutelage. We're going to restrict your activities, right? You got to be in the house at a certain time. You can't drive cars until a certain age and after a certain level of testing and competency testing and skill training. So we're doing the best we can as a community. Now, there's going to be limitations to what you can do. You got to, at some point, allow that person, like you said, to have their own autonomy and their own decision making. So do you think that Black parents don't love their children enough to give them these rules and give them these concerns such that they don't engage in behavior that could kill them, paralyze them, kill somebody else? Do you think that's what's happening in the Black community? That we're not concerned enough about these issues? That's for you, what's his name?
I believe Blake.
Blake, sorry. Yeah, that's for you, Blake. Blake, that question was for you. Did you hear what I said?
Okay.
All right, he's on mute right now. Okay.
I want to say something, but I feel like it's going to be very controversial. But I
was trying to get to my mic. Hey, I was trying to get to my mic. My kids, I got kids running around. We got breakfast wrapped up. But no, I was saying, like, dude, like, bro, man, you said a whole lot. I said a whole lot, but I think it's really simple. People that raise their kids right, their kids aren't stealing cars. The ones that are raising their kids right and have that 1%, that child that's just an outlier that just does what you want to do. All races have that one stubborn ass kid. But for the most part, raising your kids right, your kids are not out stealing and robbing and shooting. It's just point blank. It's a point. You know what I'm saying is it's a point blank thing. And what I'm saying is I'm saying that look, I understand that there's racism. I understand that there's a whole lot of against this. I'm saying at the very same time that's going on, we do things that we can't afford given the circumstance. Given the circumstance that racism, systemic racism, history of slavery, all of that. With all that being said, we do things that are not conducive to us even breaking past that. We're fighting that because we pretend. No, I'm saying that's the biggest point. That's the fire in the house.
I want to build off this. So I understand that there are, like you're saying, extra activities that Blacks shouldn't be doing given the world that they live in. I agree with you. Now, when we talk about raising your kids right, we understand after studies, after experiencing life, we know what are the main factors in having children be raised right. And I think you already know that's going to be the presence of a father. Do you agree that there is no other factor in terms of raising a family or raising children that is more important than having the presence of a father? You agree that that's the most important factor, yes or no?
It just be a healthy family.
Do you agree, Blake? Yes or no? Oh, he's probably busy again. But anyway, so since it's the case that we know that the father is the most important factor based on studies, our own studies and our own. Yeah, just 1 second, George. You don't want to be interrupted. Let me make my point and we can do it from there, okay? So, since that's the most important factor, and we know what it takes for father to be in the house, that's going to be for the father to be employed and for the father to have a healthy partner, right? And so, since it's the case that employment is going to be like a factor that is, of course, in their control to an extent, but not in their control to another extent, then that is a reality that exists. And then again, having a healthy partner, that's going to be in your control to an extent and out of your control to an extent. Do you agree with that, Blake? Or are you still probably still on mute? Anyway,
So I took a class in black male education, and we didn't see in that class. They didn't say it was alluded to and stuff like that. A house without a child, a father is a factor, but it is by itself not a factor. So what's a factor when you correlate with other things is that the mom isn't. So here's other factors.
Wait, what point are you?
Wait, one second. I'm trying to figure it out because I'm trying to say it in a certain way.
You don't know the point that you want to make?
No,
that's not what I said. I'm trying to figure it out.
You're trying to ask what is the point you're trying to make? You're saying that men in the house are not. Are you trying to say that men in the house are not the most important factor?
Not necessarily. That's not necessarily what
I'm sorry. That's what the study showed, man.
That's nice.
That's not what the study showed.
Okay, great. What is the most important factor?
So it's actually them having a job and not having a job. You said it's the father, but they have to have a job and they have to have a healthy partner. What I'm saying is there's hella more to it because you right there, you're talking about not talking about the system. That's excusing the system. So the problem is not just like, oh, you have a job. But the problem is that the economic issues going on now is the mom and the dad have to have a job, have to have 2 or 3 jobs and stuff like that. What's making it a factor if kids are staying at home or staying out of trouble usually is if the kids, and I was a youth organizer too, if the kids have a parent 9 to 5 job and there's a parent at home at all times. If the parent, it doesn't matter if they have 2 parents, it doesn't matter if father's in the home. If both parents have to be out of working all the time and there's no one there to have the kids. Same thing is like if it was a single parent and they have mother, uncle, their grandmother, other people taking care of the kids, and she's working, then it's still the village. It's the whole thing of village raise a child. So it's still about the system. So if we're talking about supporting a child to make sure you don't get into shit, it's always about who's gonna when the parent gets home, when the kid gets home. If there's nobody when the kid gets home helping with homework like that, those are factors in their life. But it's not negating fathers being in the home. But what I'm saying is that we have to look at the bigger system of income, of having to work so much, having to be around the type of jobs parents have, and the involvement of the extended family. There's just a lot more to it. And so I'm just saying, invoke the whole system, not just the father part of it.
Well, the point that I was making was going straight to the most important factor. And it has shown that single parents have better outcomes with children than single mothers. If you extrapolate that to
restate that.
Excuse me?
Can you restate that fact?
Studies have shown that single fathers have better outcomes with their children than single mothers. So from that, we understand. 1 second, sir. From that, I draw the conclusion. Second, third, for the most. Anyway, from that, I draw the conclusion that a father in a 2-parent home is the most important factor for the outcome of the children. It's basically like, just think of it like math.
You're deferring a fact out of anything.
Wait, what did you say? I didn't understand what you're saying, man.
You're deferring a fact from someone saying that
single parent. You mean infer?
You're inferring that that's a fact. You just said that, like, based on this, I'm thinking this.
Yeah, I made an inference.
Yeah, there are a lot of studies and statistics that show better outcomes for children raised by single fathers than single mothers.
Yeah, but there's so much. So unless you account for
you can research. You have access to your phone. You have access to your computer. And now you're going to stagnate the conversation because you're ignorant to these realities.
So inferring. So my problem with inferring, because when I hate any of the studies that just say it's single parents, is this and that and that, and they don't pull in jobs, extended family, all this stuff I listed. a lot of studies do not talk about that. And it took a while of me doing research and really seeing, I'm like, something's missing here because the people I'm around does not correlate with these studies, right? And you notice how much data is missing out of them. So that's why I'm saying inferring it to me is just kind of weird, because with single mothers or single fathers, people have already said, like, or not on this stage, but when you have single fathers, a lot of times they get extra help from folks because people are like, oh, it's so cool that you took your kid to school. The hell, that's what they're supposed to do. But they'll get extra help. On the other hand, women will get extra help in some areas, but not others. It's assumed that they should be doing certain things and all that kind of stuff. So unless there's certain factors controlled, it's really hard to just say it's because they're a father. It has to be a lot more data points controlled for me to make that same connection.
It's certainly true that in higher socioeconomic classes, the lack of a father in a home is going to have less overall impact. But the fact still remains that single parent households, especially when they're missing a father, suffer on average regardless of socioeconomic class. It's certainly more common in lower socioeconomic classes to have single parent families and then suffer greater financial stresses, right? If you come from a higher class and a parent either decides to no longer participate or a parent is lost due to death or something like that, the socioeconomic impact doesn't multiply the lack of parent impact, but it's still a large factor in the outcome of children.
How are we measuring outcomes in children?
See how he wants to get into militia because he's trying to look for a defeater. Like, go study,
It's
bro.
fine. It's fine. It's fine. I'll answer. I know what a few of them are. A few of those metrics that they use are things like education, the likelihood of ending up in prison or committing crime, the likelihood of having healthy relationships with others and spouses, the likelihood of getting good jobs, things of that nature, right? The things that you consider to be like what decent people are able to achieve.
Fair enough. So my follow up to that would be, what the hell does that have to do with having a dick between your legs? Excuse me. What the hell does that have to do with having a dick between your legs? Well, that is purely socioeconomic.
That's fine. You could ask that question.
That is purely socioeconomic. If you have a child that has a single parent, but that single parent is well off, it's not going to matter if that person has a dick in between their legs. That child is going to do better on average than a child.
Let me appeal to Gorgeous for a second here. So Gorgeous,
excuse me, CEO. I know, but you don't get to just talk over me.
Oh, well, no, Gorgeous, I wanted to try. I've heard you in rooms, and I just wanted to appeal to you for a second. May I?
You don't listen. I don't yield to heterosexual.
Okay.
You got a long twang in your voice.
So we don't need to continue listening to you. Can we go back to Salona? She was actually good.
No, can I interact with Gorgeous for a moment?
I deny your request. So
Hang on. Gorgeous was speaking, but Gorgeous, if you are finished, people.
Can we change the focus of the
For Christ's
conversation?
sake, come on, for the sake of just trying to get the conversation back on track, let's at least let him finish. This last final time will be the last final time he's going to cut anybody off, and vice versa. Anybody should cut anybody off. And then CEO, if you can possibly engage with him in good faith, and Gorgeous, if you're going to at least not cut him off. You don't have to listen, you don't have to respond, but at least let him speak to you, whatever he wants to say. Gorgeous, go ahead.
Fair enough. And thank you. And I just wanted to say it's purely socioeconomic. If you have a child who has a single parent, and that single parent is doing better on average, right, than the average person, and you compare that child to a married family who consists of a man and a woman, and they aren't doing as well financially, the child with the single parent is going to do better on average. On average is the key phrase there, than the child compared to the child in the married family, in the married couple. So we can look at things like that to determine that it's not just about gender. Talking about gender oversimplifies the dynamics at play. And that's what's annoying.
Yeah, so George, I was just going to suggest that within the Black community, at least, the sort of man who's going to take on the role of being a single father and lean into that is typically a different caliber man than those who don't. And I think that we should acknowledge that difference. So I could see how the outcomes would be more significant because what the type of man who does that is very different. I think for women in general lean into it more, so there's not as much differentiation amongst mothers as there are among men related to being a single father. So what is your thought?
Listen, even if you look at men on average make more than women. It doesn't matter if it's a single man or a single woman. It doesn't matter how you cut this cake. It's going to go. It's more about financial. I hear what you're saying about men, and you feel like a man if he steps up to take care of his child. That makes him a special kind of man. That's an indictment on men, by the way. But
I know.
Why? So the thing is like you can't say that for a fact. The only thing that we can see as the contributing factor to outcomes is primarily socioeconomics. And there are other dynamics like how the child is raised. If they're in a single parent household, do they have like someone in the house or like grandparents or yada yada yada? Those things play a role too. But the silver bullet is socioeconomics.
And I would say that if we don't control those factors, like we just said, and like I said earlier, I think that the situation is actually worse among some kids of how bad their situations are because we're not having controlling factors. We're just like there's people who have 2-parent households but we're not trying to make sure that there's someone at home or that they're getting fed every day and da-da-da. So there's not programs helping those kids out. There's probably more issues going on with middle class folks now because we keep saying all these random shit that doesn't have all these data points being controlled that are suffering, middle class kids suffering more than you have poor kids because y'all might be poor, but the mom was at home, right? Or certain things are being done, or certain programs they're being part of. And so when we're talking about the stealing of the cars, and where I'm from, they're finding out most of these kids that are stealing cars are actually middle class and everything. But because we have a lack of programs in certain areas, and again, system like cutting money to youth programs, cutting money to after school programs, cutting money to different things, and the family not having enough money to pay for after school stuff, they're seeing an increase in crime stuff related to middle class, not necessarily a low income and poor. It's middle class kids doing a bunch of bullshit.
This presupposition that like the genitalia of the parent is not a factor is just like rainbowery no think. It's silly to suggest. First and foremost, the idea that men make more money than women is factually untrue. When you account for hours worked, experience, time and position, and education, women actually tend to over-earn men. Moreover, there are far more programs for supporting single mothers than there are single fathers. There are circumstances in which the responsibilities, communities tend to rally behind single mothers in a way that they don't typically rally behind single fathers. Yet somehow the outcomes for single father households tend to be better than single mother households. And like you can say all day long that that's socioeconomic, but the numbers don't prove that. And the fact remains is that you can glean reasonable information from these metrics.
Would it
be wrong point of clarification.
More so?
Quick point of clarification. Sugar, you said women if you factor in hours. What are the factors that they earn more?
If you factor in, if you look at just men and women, yes, men are higher earners. But if you factor for hours worked, time and position, men typically work more hours overall.
Okay, and what else?
if you look at time and position, if you look at education, and if you look at the experience relative to the position, women earn more. Women are paid at a higher rate typically than.
So you're saying men work more hours, they earn more, but women are paid more hourly.
What I'm saying is the 72 cents on the dollar non-think that we hear in these sort of conversations comes as a result from it comes as a result of men working more hours, men being more aggressive in their negotiations, and men being in higher risk positions on average over women in terms of safety.
Okay, I got you.
When you factor for the same position, the same education, the same all things being equal, women tend to earn higher wage.
Right. When you play it in reverse, it makes sense what you said. You just said it. You said it. Your initial statement was what you said in the reverse. It makes sense now.
So I just want to point out something. I just want real quick. I just want to point out. So what we're saying, me and Gordon just talked about that there should be different factors put into a certain types of studies, that if you put in more factors, you get a bigger picture and a more different type picture, which was like kind of dismissed. But you're saying that when you're looking at the fact of women making less than men, we should put in different factors?
No. What I'm saying is when you're trying to isolate these arguments down to individual sources of problems, right? Like the greater picture is certainly relevant until you start trying to draw a hierarchical list of priorities from which to work from. If you look at the greater picture, yes, of course you have to include more factors. But if you're trying to isolate specific factors that are more valuable than others, the low-hanging fruit, so to speak, to try to remedy in these communities to have the greatest impact, then you have to consider single-factor circumstances.
No, because any kind of policy, the problem is you have any kind of policy that only looks at one factor, it's going to probably be a bad policy. Any elected official that does that and only looks at one thing is actually I would consider them a dumbass. Because if I put in, I don't know, bike rack out in the street even, and we don't think about people who are disabled, people who are this, people who are that, or whatever that's a bad politician because they're supposed to be representing all people. There's no way that I'm going to take care of an issue if will I only look at one factor. That is not in half the picture if you do that. No one does that. And if they do, a lot of times they're made fun of by their peers because that's just, or people in the community, because that's just not how policy works. We're in a system of people, and there's so many things you need to take into as a factor before just implementing policy. Otherwise, you might inadvertently harm.
Yeah, so that's not what I said. I want to be clear. I said when you're identifying particular problems to try to resolve these gaps, you have to look at individual circumstances. I'm not saying that policy should be binary and tone deaf and include no nuance. That wasn't my suggestion. But what my suggestion is when you're trying to identify the most harmful factors to prevent the conditions in which you're trying to prevent, you have to look at the things individually.
Yeah, and I'm saying no, that's not the case. I understand what you said.
I don't know how you establish a hierarchy of problem solving without having derivative approaches, right?
So if I do a hierarchy of someone's hungry, so I think we're probably saying similar words but not the same words.
What I'm saying is you have to eat the elephant one bite at a time, and you can't just fix all problems with the waving of a magic wand. That's where policy fails.
I get you. I think we're missing each other because it's just similar words but not the same words. So what I'm talking about is you're talking about let's do a hierarchy of someone's hungry, someone's homeless, someone's guy has a gunshot, right? We would hierarchical that we would do the gunshot first and maybe get food in and then maybe a house, right? That's what you're saying. And so yes, you're right in that way. What I'm saying is
I don't think that's what he's saying.
Well, he said he wanted
to a degree, that is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you're trying to identify bad outcomes in children as they progress into adulthood, and you're wishing to resolve those issues, obviously you want to start with some balanced approach of the issue the issue that requires the least amount of resources to solve, but also has the most impact.
Yeah, so I got you on that. So then let's once we get ready to solve the gunshot and try to prevent all kids from doing gunshots. That's where once we do what you're talking about, what I'm saying comes into play. So technically we're in two different levels of taking care of the issue. Pointed it out already and made it hierarchical. I agree with you. But then also what I'm saying is once we're trying to establish that program, then I'm saying we will look into the entire system and look into more issues so that we make sure that whatever policy gets put in place doesn't harm other groups and stuff like that. So I think we're just talking in two different levels of action, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but Solona, your issue is you're trying to defeat the studies without understanding the methodologies employed. And that's weird, right? Not even knowing what the studies are. You're trying to find a defeater. And I'm like, that's weird. Like,
no, I wasn't.
You're in the matrix. I didn't hear all your messages. I think you're in the matrix.
Yeah, so Lona and George are trying to defeat, claiming a leader for these studies, and they don't even know the methodologies employed for them to come to their conclusions that males are important in the rearing of children, right?
So I wasn't going against the methodology. I don't have it in front of me, nor is this a classroom, so I ain't thinking we're gonna have to go through the methodology. What I said was a lot of the methodology though, of the research that's around that, because I actually was in classes about Black male achievement and part of it is that the methodology that I've read does not have a lot of times multiple levels of factors. That's what I said. We dismiss your thing.
Oh, so it's not a dismissal. It's just a critique based on other studies that are not the study that we're appealing to.
No, I said I didn't read yours. I said I didn't read and I said,
why are you fighting hard against it if you haven't even bothered to know what's going on?
You haven't read my studies. I'm not.
You didn't present any. Did you present studies?
Solana, literally, but Solana, I'm gonna push you off. Literally, they're gonna let me.
One at a time. No,
my fault. Red country.
No, I'm just trying to nail down one point, and if you get her off that point, then she's gonna wiggle out of it. Because the whole presentation that George and Solana have been giving is that not basically. And then now we're like off their point, which was about racism and blacks and families and shit like that, right? Now we're going into the minutia to talk about how were these studies conducted and were they at.
You're in the matrix, concrete. But I want to make. I want to just say one thing. So, Solana, with respect to the studies that have been done, like single parents, there's liberals, conservatives, and they factor for, and they're comparing apples to apples, right? They're not certainly not going to compare a father with less resources versus a mom with more resources. But what they're finding consistently, with respect to single parents alone, if you isolate men. With kids and single parents, when it's men, tend to do better than with single moms. Obviously, 2 parents is ideal, but when they factor in, men tend to do better. These are multiple studies that are done by all types of groups, and they all come to the same conclusion.
So I never even dismissed them. What I said was, and it's not necessarily the same. But what I said is that I think there's a lot of factors that is not put into these studies, and that's why I don't.
How would you know that without knowing the study? How would you know that without knowing the study?
Dude, I'm saying I'm not dismissing that study. I'm saying overall factor, the fact of things that I studied, that the fact of conversations that we had, the work I've done in my city on the issue. That my dad actually does this kind of shit, that other people have done this shit, that I'm around, that I do. This is what my opinion is of all that stuff that I've done. So I'm not coming to my ass out of my ass fucking thing. So if you let me finish, all I'm saying is that it's not dismissing that men are important in people's lives or anything like that. But what I'm saying is that we cannot tackle the entire system in which bullshit happens. Is that not every man can be in every child's life. Okay, so what else can we do? We can increase the amount of money that the mom gets. We can increase the amount of, or also, I was talking about two-parent households, that they will both be in the household. They will both be working, but they've been working so damn much until they're technically not in the kid's life. And the kid's just as susceptible to being an at-risk child.
That's not true at all.
The origin of the conversation was isolating the matter specifically to single-parent households and the economic conditions in that regard. Like, yes, of course, we can expand the conversation to include about nuance and more details and more permutations. But Solana, the original conversation was intentionally a derivative. It was intentionally, let's isolate it to this particular concept and explore that thusly. And what you're doing is like, we're trying to stay on one track and you're heading off on a side track. And
no,
in fairness, I understand why you're doing
our point. While discrediting our point.
It went off that way. I feel like
right, but the framework here is we're working on multiplication, and you're all of a sudden trying to have a conversation about fractions, and we're saying like, hey, look, that's really not right.
Look, honestly, if I'll bring it back in, the whole thing started when Blake was trying to explain how, and I'll paraphrase here, Black America can't afford to be anything less than flawless with their behavior. And when you have a lot of children out here who are engaged in gang activity, and crime, and theft, et cetera, dropping out of school, flunking out of school, et cetera, that gives a bad impression on Black America for white people. And that is when Gorgeous was starting to rebut with the whole, well, white kids do this too. That's how we eventually came down this. Oh, that was you. But that's how we eventually got down this rabbit hole. But the entire conversation was originally about how Black people can't be racist and all white people are racist.
And how dare you and their followers is crazy. And that's the dumbest argument I've ever heard in my entire life. Because previous to hip hop and all the bad imagery, when blacks were model citizens, right? There's never been a time in which blacks have been not viewed as bad, right? Even when the majority of us went to church and our neighborhoods weren't crime, we were just poor, like during the segregation years, or the Jim Crow years. We were still looked at as bad, like we were just bad, and that hasn't changed. That idea hasn't changed. Just because I'm educated, where
that's what Blake's
I'm still viewed by the larger white society as like a criminal.
But that's where Blake's argument comes in, right? It's like because of the fact that there's like a lot of Black youth engaging in violent crime and gang activity, there are some white people who make the overarching assumption that even
I'm Muslim. Again, I'm Muslim. That would be. NGO.
Why does Soren think that he gets to choose? He's a loser here.
He's not He's a welcher. Right, Daniel? Remember that word?
Yeah, he's not a welcher. Yeah, the welcher.
Yes, you are. You don't know what the word welcher means.
Oh, well, you know what it means. You're actually doing it.
Yes,
Soren surprised that he doesn't pay his
Soren, there's a link. There's a link in the chat. A GoFundMe campaign to help the families of Mugshell Chumps after their murder. After their murder by Hezbollah terrorists.
I'm okay with
they're
that.
Arabs. They're Arabs.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that my money will go to help the Jewish community.
But do you
Not just
trust him that he's actually going to send the money and he's not going to falsify a certificate?
Now you become fast American trust issues. You want
Well,
to
you
need
look
to
at the top.
hold on, Jacob. You need to get a little bit more creative with your insults. Why do you think I will be insulted because you call me a South American or a Zionist, dude. Like you're oh, come on.
First of all, he's geographically.
You're Central American.
He's Central American. I'm South American. He's Central American. So let's get that jargon out, right?
So what do you think about college? So what do you think about college?
I'm gonna get offended
Hold
by
on.
that.
So what do you think of, 1 second.
We have to use the right offense.
So what do you think about college idea of the Jewish community?
No. Arab, Muslim, apathy. Only the
Hey!
You do realize there are
Which
Muslims
one?
in Africa, and there were Jews in Africa until you guys have to cleanse them. Not also Ethiopian, because there might be some Jews there, but Africans.
Okay, it doesn't want to say, guys, let's move on. Let's move on. Whenever we see someone
African, you can just like to let's have the Ura, the Palestinian Ura. I'm also happy to
whenever we see someone, just remind you that he's a welcher.
Right, the definitions at top.
You have to prove everyone in these rooms, Soren, that you actually are the way that they thought you were.
Uninformed welcher.
Fire you out of it.
Hey, when the IRGC did their last evaluation of your performance, what rating did you get?
Well, they said my performance is better than the Hasbara Fellowship program that all of you guys see that. You know?
When are they paying you? When is the paycheck coming?
Come on, Jacob, I don't think he gets paid. Jacob is fine. Jacob's coming out of his free will. I doubt it gets paid, but Isa, you're 100% get paid.
Wait, if I don't get paid, she definitely doesn't get paid.
No. Yeah, what's he doing here? What the mother? Who's paying him? U.S. I'm interested because I'm from that region. I'm very interested because I'm from the region. He's not from
what region? Right from? So, right from?
I'm from Middle East.
He's from Iran. I started talking to Daniel. I heard him speak in Farsi.
Yeah, no.
We're interested in the region. No, you're Persian.
You're Persian.
I get shekels every Monday in my Swiss account.
Isa, who cares about the Guatemala politics?
You're gonna let anyone else speak? Yeah, you can call him Welcher. You can call him Welcher, not Owen. Yeah.
Welcher, shut up. Isa is pronounced chesticles.
Oh.
I mean, why are you interested about the visiting politics? You're from Guatemala. You can talk about Colombia, Venezuela politics. I get it.
Your flag.
2 oceans away. Obviously, very interesting. So you're not dumb. You're not stupid. You get paid. So that's fine.
Like, we all see each other. I don't know. You know what's new to me? I mean, the Iranians. Hold on. It's what's new to me. The Iranians. Hold on. The Iranians are so hold on.
Oh, you'll know that one day, Soren.
The Iranians are so obsessed with honor. The Iranian is so obsessed with honor, but then we see Soren, he has no honor. He has no problem being here. Like, he has zero problem being here, knowing that everybody knows that he's a welcher, that he's not willing to pay his debts and his, what he's owed.
I want
So I'm not sure.
Do you think it would help him to know that all of us get paid by hold on, sorry, let's talk to Daniel. Say, infidel, shut up. I was Daniel, do you think it would help him to know that we get paid double time when we have someone in here arguing with us?
Yeah.
He's back.
Daniel, can any of you please bring him back?
Yes. I think we should refer to him as Welcher instead of Orange.
Yeah.
It's his defeat. I love that, Daniel. That was great.
Yes.
You know, nature flag, the Japanese don't do kamikaze anymore.
Yeah, they just bend over. To the west, at least.
No, that'll be Iran short.
Just to prove anything that Welcher said is a lie.
I think rather than Welcher, you should call him what he really is, a sore ass.
Would it be okay if I asked them not to send a lot? Maybe I could take them 2 apps from my PTBR. Would that go toward that $100 to him? What do you think?
I didn't even understand.
He's just picking off on this Iranian threat for like 2 days now. So well, sir, it will take another 10 days. So like try not to come prematurely. Try not to come prematurely.
You haven't started. Look at the Apple PCR, by the way. It's already have an impact.
Well, you don't even know what that is. You think it's like a heartbeat. No.
Don't you? So it reminds me of the way Trump speaks, no? The way Trump speaks is a bit like a around the way. You know, I'm the best. You know.
But honestly, I told you.
Okay, let's move. Don't say honestly, please. Well, don't say honestly. Say anything. Exactly. Okay.
Now you're happy enough. In France, did you see what happened to Israeli athletes?
You mean they won a whole bunch of events?
Because they survived, yes. That's why the life is in danger. I told you the same thing 2 weeks ago.
It turns out when you join an army, when you join an army in a country that's constantly being attacked, you're used to your life being in danger.
I told this guy, be careful, don't say I survived in Europe because you're gonna be in trouble. And look at what's happening to Israeli athletes now.
So you're bragging about people being
Let's start with Greg.
Well, sir, how many medals did the Iranians win at the Olympics so far?
It's not about winning, man. What do you see that?
The Olympics is not about winning.
How much money do you have in your account? This is American.
The Olympics is not about winning.
Sorry, I want you to
I'm a winner.
This is like the Asian frozen storm.
You know, the life is not about America.
The Olympics is not about winning.
Same response. I hope you have the same response for war. It's not about winning.
It's not about winning. That's exactly the point.
It's still the participation that counts, right? So are you happy?
He's already preparing for the walking back.
By American culture. Winning, money. What is the American dream? House. To own a house. What the fuck? Working for a bank.
I guess you guys get
it's called building a What's the culture that you guys grew up with? And you think the rest of the world thinks of you guys?
It's literally the point. Sportsmanship and winning are literally the express points of the Olympics.
And bringing people together.
Yeah, and Iran sent 40 athletes. They had no medals. Israel.
So what? What's that China? So what?
Guatemala has 2 medals.
Yeah, that's
China.
What are you, 14 million people?
Iran. That is 2 more than Iran.
Look at the China and India, the 2 populated. Look at the
Soren, why are we looking at China and India when they're not relevant?
I'm talking about the football, the soccer. I mean, the whole world.
Why are we looking at them? They're not relevant.
Selecting specific.
Iran didn't even play football. Why are you bringing soccer up?
Iran doesn't play soccer? Wow.
On the Olympics, did they field the team?
You know nothing, Jim.
Did they field the team, Soren?
Yeah, well, but you know nothing about that. Okay, what should I talk about?
Did they field the team in the Olympics for soccer?
Soren knows a lot about soccer. You can kick them the ball.
Walter, do that? I get kicked in the ball?
I mean, he would if he had them. But they yelled at him. They found out about his,
So to be clear, Iran did not field an Olympic football or soccer team. They have 40 athletes total, none of which play football. You ignorant bull.
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't even know. That's not a word in widespread use in American English. I have no idea. I don't know.
Okay, hold.
Belcher? What the hell? I mean,
don't you?
I think Susana wanted to say something.
No, I just called it
what you're doing a fucking belching. I can tell from your voice.
Someone who doesn't pay. Sorry, I thought it was Mike. I thought it was unmuted. No, I don't want to filter it. This is not American.
That's a disgusting word, by the way. You can look it up.
Jaco.
Sorry.
thank you. Many times I hear interesting discussions, but I really dislike how you guys always bring to each other. I'm not really agreeing with Soren, with me, things, but this time I just came up to say that it's true Iranians didn't have a team in Olympics, but football is really, really important thing there in Iran. It's in their heart, and they actually even make politics through it by, for example, being behind teams that the government would so also just one.
No. Iran such a team. Iran does. Iran's 40 games, they